Stack it up, don't fumble. You just gotta stay humble. You ain't flip it till you make it double. Baby girl, I ain't got time to cuddle. I ain't lying to you, I just had none. They ain't give it, had to take some. I can tell you ain't all of a sudden. What the fuck, thought we came much struggle. But I know I gotta stand for some. I cannot settle for none. If you with me, then I love you. If you ain't, then it's fuck. I can't go out like a buster. Come from a family full of hustlers. I can't go out like a buster.
What's going on, everybody? Last episode we talked about, just our healing journeys, generational trauma, survival mode, and how to overcome those things. And if you're new here, welcome back to the Familyfullofhustlers podcast. My name is Eric M. I am your host, and today I want to do a follow-up episode from the previous one, right? And we talked about healing on the last one. If you didn't listen to it, go check it out. But I wanted to really make this one clear, right? Healing is not enough. You still gotta fucking build. Now, this might feel like complete opposite take on the last episode, but trust me, if you stick around, you'll get what I'm going with it. Alright? So, the truth is, we've been doing things backwards for a long time, right? Like I said, we were in survival mode for so long. We're just doing shit unhealed, and it's created a cycle, and then we try to heal at the end. We're supposed to start at healing, right? Healing is the pregame, right? Healing is like you in your warm-up jumpsuit before the game start. Your stretches, you know what I'm saying? That's Stephen Curry in the corner taking warm-up jump shots. You feel me? Quick little layup drill. You feel me? That's what healing is, right? You can't do that and then go sit on the bench and not do nothing and just keep going and do warm-ups and then go keep going and sit on the bench, right? The truth is, healing is not the destination. It's more so just preparation. All right. So the truth is, if all we do is heal, we cry, we journal and shit, we go to therapy, which I hope some of you probably do, and then we stop there, we miss the entire fucking point. Right? This is why I don't believe in that whole making your identity this soft life shit. I personally don't agree with that. People have talked about hustle culture and how it's like detrimental to the mind and all these different things. I've seen content about that. But on the other side of that, if you make your entire identity this soft life character, right, what happens is you're just as imbalanced as somebody who has a toxic identity with hustle culture. It's the same thing on a different side of the spectrum. One of them, you are damaging yourself mentally. The other one, you're not doing anything at all. You're disguising it as healing. And you really are turning into being lazy and unstructured and undisciplined. And the only way you strengthen a muscle is if you test it. Right? That's what this is. So, in this episode, I want to go and talk about the next step, right? Because healing is not sacred. So take that back. Because healing is sacred, but it ain't necessarily the goal. The goal was for you to build, right? So we have to get into it. So, I know a lot of people who spent a long time healing, right? And actually, I'll go back and make it more personal to myself, so y'all don't think I'm just making some shit up, right? So I went through a phase where, like I said in the previous episode, I was grinding from an unhealed mind, hustling from an unhealed mind, and I kept having to readjust, rebuild, restructure. I kept losing money, losing my mind. I just kept going through this up and down phase that I just feel like I couldn't get over. And what I come to understand was it was because I just wasn't in the right headspace, you know. Even with this, with the podcast, right? You know, a lot of people who are probably listening to this have heard of my podcast at one point in time, right? It wasn't consistent because I was in a rush trying to get to the end goal. You know, I'm like, man, I ain't making no money from that shit, man. I gotta put it down. I don't care about that. I got real business to handle on the back end. Right? That's how I was, right? And what I ended up doing was putting it to the side. And what happened was I went on this journey of, you know, healing through some of the mistakes I had in my businesses. And what happened was while I was going through this reflective time period, I wasn't doing shit. And what ended up happening was I felt like when I kind of got my head out of that dark cloud, it was like, okay, it's go time now. I'm good. I got the energy, I got the stamina, I got the mind. Oh, let's get it, right? But then I started to kind of feel like, damn, I got a lot of catching up to do. You know, I started to feel like there was a lot of stuff I could have been doing, but I wasn't doing because I was giving myself an out because I was, quote unquote, healing, right? So, and I know of a few people. I'm not going, throw their names out there, nothing like that. But I know of people who went through this healing period and they spent years to the point where they made it their identity, into their brands. They made it their thing, right? To where that's all they talk about. That's all they do. That's all they, that's kind of what they build around. And what it turned into from it being about healing to turning into them a lifestyle brand, and it becomes a form of avoidance, right? People stay in self-discovery forever and forget, like, the healing was never meant to be the damn retirement plan. It was meant to be like a restart, like a pit stop, not necessarily like a parking lot. We just supposed to stop right quick, get rejuvenated, get our energy back, get our mind healthy, and then get back to it. So here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot fix generational curses if you never built generational infrastructure. All right? It's not necessarily enough to feel whole. You got to create something that your kids or you or your younger self would be proud of. Now, I'm not saying this to say, oh yeah, man, fuck therapy. That's what punks and shit. I ain't saying that. I'm not saying, don't take that rest. I'm not saying that at all, right? But at some point, you have to start the business. You got to buy the land. You got to build the trust. You got to create the system, write the book, teach the thing, whatever the fuck you doing, right? You have to do it, all right? So I like the comparison between this and sports. If every player who ever got injured went back into rehab and they never returned, the sport wouldn't be a sport, because every player gets hurt, right? They take the time off that they need. They get stronger. They might go through their mental barriers, and they come back better, right? So that is a similar thing as I relate to it with business, right? I tell people all the time, like, sometimes you gotta take a month off, bro. Sometimes you gotta take a couple weeks off. Sometimes you gotta shut some shit down to where you focus solely on you in whatever way that might make sense, right? And for me, what that has looked like, just off of just to give a personal example, right? With the Family Full of Hustlers brand, I've had Facebook groups that have hit thousands of members, 1,000 members. I've had Discords that have hit hundreds of members. I've done things like that, right? When I felt like it was getting detrimental to my energy or my health or in any type of way, I shut it down completely, cut it off, and I don't care. And the reason is, if I'm not in a mental headspace to keep it going, what the fuck is it, right? If I feel like it's taking more from me than it should in any capacity, then I'm not doing it, right? It also showed up in me being in a position now where I say no a lot, right? So that's how it can play out in real time, So just go move on, all right? So let me hit y'all with some stats that I found was interesting. I know I love stats. I'm a numbers guy. I like what the numbers say, right? According to the Federal Reserve, and this is of 2022, black families hold about 15% of wealth in comparison to other families. All right, so meaning if the median household wealth is, let's say, 45,000 for black family, for the median white family it's about 300,000, 290,000, something around that number, right? So I also found it interesting that black Americans are more likely to attend therapy today than ever before, and that's great, right? But the wealth building participation hasn't risen. It hasn't rose in the same rate, so we still have to kind of go through the doing as well. 60% of millennials and Gen Z say that they start businesses, but less than 5% actually do, according to a survey in 2023. So think about this. So what's the disconnect? All right, a lot of us are mentally healing, but we're not materially building, right? So again, hustle culture, which I really feel like is influencer culture, told you to grind, no sleep, no days off, cut off everybody, get the fucking bag, and that showed up in an unhealthy way for a lot of us, because again, we didn't heal before we jumped off the porch and started calling ourselves entrepreneurs who are trying to build generational wealth, right? So it wore us all out. It wore a lot of us out. I see people across the board of all races shutting down 7-figure businesses because they were tired. And that happened. We blame the hustle culture when it's not. It ain't necessarily that part, but yeah, you could argue that, right? Now on the other end of it, we have self-care being a lifestyle brand, being turned into lifestyle brands or an identity. And what it's doing is therapy is telling us that we deserve better, but a lot of it is being disguised as avoidance. All right. So what's the in between here? All right. Building, again, remember I told y'all that business and entrepreneurship and money is spiritual just as much as it is material, right? So with that being said, what's the in between here? Building is a form of therapy as well, right? So you have to build something, whether it's a business, a home, a mission, a body of work, something that gives structure, Structure heals, routine heals, discipline. I've seen a quote. I know we've all seen this quote somewhere floating around or meme somewhere where it says that discipline is the ultimate form of self-care. So that in itself is a form of what I'm saying, right? For example, for me, when I told y'all before, like, me getting, like, prioritizing my health, like what I'm eating, like I said, yoga. Right now, it's been like weightlifting or whatever to heal, right? It's good for the mind, right? And you want to know what's also been healing for me has been me closing deals, getting on the phones. You feel me? Partnerships. Me launching. I'm in preparation of launching my Land OS app, which definitely check that out. By the way, it's going to be the first platform for land investors or aspiring land investors to learn, execute, and connect on one platform. Right? I spent a lot of time on this platform, and me building something like that has been a healing experience, just as much as me sleeping all damn day, right? Or just as much as me journaling or going to the beach. Me building and making these different connections. Now I'm getting invited to do like speaking engagements and to help launch and all types of different things. I'm shaking hands with some pretty big people. So that is healing just as much as me sitting still. It's a similar concept to like stuff like weightlifting or boxing or whatever that's like that could be physically taxing on the body, does something to us where it kind of gives us a sense of accomplishment. So that in itself is healing us in a way, right? That's the opposite of like more like meditation, where you're just kind of just laying and you're sitting still. Both of those things are on the opposite side of the spectrum, but they are both aligned with the same goal, which is to heal the mind and the body, right? So all of those things contribute to it. So in the same way where you're just sitting there, you're journaling and all that, man, you gotta actually apply some of your greatness, some of your brilliance, and that will show you who you really are. All right. So me going through the processes of building, different things. I've helped people close I don't know how many deals. I've got messages from people like, yo, you helped me close a $20,000 deal, right? That in itself has helped me heal my negative self-talk, which again came from survival mode. I'm so used to not even being who I am or where I am that I have a hard time even celebrating, right? Any accomplishments, So me doing and it showing up in the real world for other people and me seeing it play out has been a healing experience for me. You see how it kind of goes in like a triangle, right? So seeing a check, is healing too. Like I said, we have to heal our relationship with money entirely. And we can't do that if we sitting still, making self-care 100% our identity, right? We have to go through the process of building. All right? That's therapy too. So we got to stop acting like softness and structure can't live in the same house. You feel me? That's what we are starting. That's what a lot of us tend to do. We don't know how to balance. Remember the whole thing about hustle culture that everybody said was so bad was that it was imbalanced, right? The opposite side of the spectrum is just as imbalanced, right? You have people who are neglecting their finances who are neglecting structure and neglecting discipline because they want to avoid the work. And that's not what gets us to the next goal. All right? That's not what's going to help our families heal as well. Right? So, like I said, stop acting like softness and structure can't live in the same house. You can pray and you can plan. You feel me? You can meditate and you can fucking monetize. You can get some money. Alright? You can cry and then get your ass up and create. You know? Your softness made a space for you. So now your structure can carry you to the next goal, to the next place, to the next destination. Right? Remember, healing is just preparation. Alright? Because your peace needs a place to live. Right? I don't give a fuck about how much you talking about peace and self-care and love, all that. That's cool. That's a beautiful thing. But if you ain't got no money at the end of the day, you ain't got no roof over your head, you don't have the essentials, you don't have a plan for the next 5 years, 10 years, what is that gonna look like? It's gonna start a cycle again and avoidance. Remember when I said in the last episode where JP Morgan said that people aren't even applying to get funding because they believe that they're not going to get it, right? That shows in survival mode, right? You being avoidant to go do anything is the same thing. It's regressing. It's making you take a step back. It's not helping you move forward, right? And that is gonna do that's the same exact thing. It's playing out the same exact way, right? So you have to kind of give your pain a job in a way, right? If your pain just sits in your heart and it just sits in your chest, that shit gonna poison you, right? It's gonna make you to where you can't move. You're not moving. But if you give it a job and place it somewhere, it can build and manifest into something that's powerful, right? This is why when you see artists, right? Anybody who know me, I know I love music. So you see artists, they say they put their pain into their music. If they didn't put their pain into their music, they feel like that pain would have killed them, right? Because it's just too much to bear. But them using that pain as a form of expression and then monetizing that expression was a healing experience, and that's what keeps them going. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship, same thing with business, right? You have to put that somewhere. You don't want to just let it sit and then avoid the work because you don't want to be hurt. You have to test what your healing has done. All right. So maybe turning that trauma into content, into a book, into something that can help the next person, right? Turn your story into like a curriculum, into music, a movie, something. Your survival can then be turned into a strategy. Like, think about it. When we go through survival mode, we have to unlearn certain things. If you document everything that we unlearn, and all of us come from different places, that period of unlearning and then having to relearn is a curriculum for your kids, your family, your older self to kind of refer back to. AKA, that's the generational wealth right there. Goddamn. Right? Going through that experience. So you can take that blueprint and use it to create something. Like I said, a newsletter, a course, a podcast. Document it, The pain wants a purpose. Give it a purpose. All right. If you don't give it one, the world gonna use it against you, and you're not even gonna know it. So you already did the healing. Now it's time to show the world what those healed hands can do, what they can build. Right? With that, what you could do with a healed mind. There was a lyric I heard from somebody, I gotta remember, but he said something like, I made it this far without even having confidence. Imagine what confidence would do for me. Gotta remember who the lyric was from. It was something like that, right? But think about that. You get to a point where you've been unhealed, and a lot of us have accomplished things from an unhealed mind, right? Imagine what we would accomplish if we were healed. Imagine that. You know what I mean? Because I would argue that that when you are coming from a place and you grind out of survival mode, you're only a fraction of your potential. And a lot of us have made a lot of money, have done a lot of amazing things by being a fraction of our best selves. You know, imagine if you balanced it out. Like I said, healing and going after it can live in the same house, bro. They can live in the same house. Softness and structure can live in the same house. All right. So remember, a healed black man who owns something, man, that's one of the most dangerous shit. This is one of the most dangerous things in the world. You know, black people who are healed, who own something. Oh yeah, we know exactly what to do. We know exactly what the make of it. All right. So if you listen to this and you've been in that healing space for a while, and you like, you know, you gotta do something, right? First, I'm gonna say I'm proud of you. I know that shit is hard to face, what you have to face to unlearn the things that were taught to us. But now I'm gonna ask you, bro, what the fuck are you building? What you doing? What's next? All right. So don't just break the cycle. It's not. That's one part of it. Now it's time for us to get up off your ass and build the infrastructure. All right. Turn it all into power. That's the next move. You know, the world not waiting on none of us to be perfect. You know, we all know that. We all say the same things, right? That nobody's fucking perfect. So the most successful people in the world are not fucking perfect. They just have audacity. They just have bravery, resilience, right? And you're healed, so you can move different. Now you can move like somebody who ain't never going back to that space they was in before, because you have the tools now, right? So anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, please share with somebody you love. This is the Family Full of Hustlers podcast. Until next time, E.